Hello and welcome to Torah portion Shelach Lekha. In this Torah portion, we're going to be looking at what is kind of colloquially known as the sin of the spies. This is a real turning point for Israel around this point in the book of Numbers, and we're going to be looking at where they fell short in their faith in Yehovah. We're also going to be looking at kind of a related issue, which is why people see what Yehovah does and they believe in him in a sense, and they see him doing signs, if you like, in their life. They can see the action of Yehovah, and yet they still fail to believe, which is, of course, the position that the Israelites were in the wilderness. So if we get into it, Numbers 13 verse 1 says, "And Yehovah spoke to Moshe, saying, Send men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the children of Israel. Send one man from each of their tribes, every one a leader, a Nasi among them. And by the command of Yehovah, Moshe sent them from the wilderness of Paran, all of them who were heads of the children of Israel." And just like I did in Torah portions, Bamidbar and Naso, I'm going to introduce you to them by way of a picture. Of course, it's not what they look like. This is just so you can realize these are real people that we're talking about here. These are people who existed historically, and they were people just like you or I, you or me. And these were their names: from the tribe of Rehaim, Shammua, son of Zachur, or Zakur as it is. From the tribe of Shimon, Shaphat, son of Churi. From the tribe of Yehudah, Kalev, son of Yefunah, so that's Caleb. From the tribe of Yisachar, Yigal, son of Yosef. From the tribe of Ephraim, Hoshea, son of Nun. That's Joshua. We'll see his name being changed. From the tribe of Binyamin, Palti, son of Raphu. From the tribe of Zebulun, Gadiel, son of Sodi. From the tribe of Yosef, from the tribe of Manasseh, of course, the tribe of Ephraim would be from the tribe of Yosef as well. Gadi, son of Susi, or Susi, depending if there's a yod on the end. I don't know the Hebrew word. From the tribe of Dan, Amiel, son of Gemali. From the tribe of Asher, Shethur, son of Michael. From the tribe of Naphtali, Nachbi, or Nachbe, again, depending if there's a yod on the end of the word, son of Wapsi, great name there. From the tribe of Gad, Geuel, son of Machi. These are the names of the men whom Moshe sent to spy out the land. And Moshe called Hoshea, which is a word which means salvation, the son of Nun. He called him Yehoshua, which means Yehovah is salvation. And this brings us very much to the name of the son of Elohim. Okay, there are people who will tell you his name is Yehusha, Yahushua, Yahawashi. I've heard all sorts. But we're actually told in the text of the Bible what his name is because of what it means. We see that in Matthew 1. Verse 21 says, "And she shall give birth to a son, and you shall call his name Yeshua, for he will save his people from their sins." And Yeshua means he will save. So you can see there we're told, you will call his name, he will save. He will save his people from their sins. Okay, it wouldn't make sense for his name to be Yehovah will save, because it's Yeshua who saves his people from their sins. And I don't know why it is that people think that Yeshua should have Yahushua, Joshua's name. I don't really understand where they're coming from, so I can't really comment on where they're coming from. But if you were to think, well, he should have the same name as Joshua, Joshua is a picture of him, after all, leading his people into the land. Yeshua does share Joshua's name. Later in Joshua's life, we see him referred to by the name Yeshua. Nehemiah 8:17 says, and the entire assembly of those who had come back from the captivity made booths, or made sukkot, and sat under the sukkot. For since the days of Yeshua, again, which means he will save, son of Nun. So we see there Yeshua being the name that Joshua is called by. We see that a couple of different times in the text, but the name is Yeshua. So if you think, well, he should have the same name as Yahushua, he does have the same name as Yahushua. Yeshua is also a contraction of Yahushua, but it's exactly the same name that is given to Joshua later in his life. But the name and the reason for the name that were given tell us that his name is Yeshua, which means he will save. There's really no doubt about it in my mind. People, when it comes to names, they come up with all sorts of bizarre reasonings why the name should be one thing over another. Like the prophets have Yahu in, so it should be Yahuwah instead of Yehovah. When actually that's not even a truth. Okay, the name of all the prophets don't have Yahu in. They all have Yah in, like that's the poetic name of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. Or some of them do. Some of them have El in, Yah or El, to refer to Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. Yahu isn't his name which has been put in there. His name which has been put in there is Yah. So be careful when you're believing things that you hear somebody on an internet video who doesn't really have much knowledge on the subject trying to tell you what it should be. Go with what the scriptures actually say. We have Yehovah written in thousands of manuscripts. We have call his name Jesus in the English text most of the time, because he will save his people from their sins. We have there very strong evidence that it's actually Yeshua rather than some of these more bizarre names. Again, Charlie spoke about this in recent memory, that people tend to go after things that are different for the sake of them being different, thinking that they've got more truth to them if they are kind of outside of mainstream thought. But that's simply not the case. We should always go with the evidence. We could say, well, we don't know for sure what the names are, but we have a whole load of evidence for the names being Yehovah and Yeshua. Not so much evidence, more kind of speculation based on poor reasoning for the names being other things. So just be aware of your thinking and whether or not it is deductive, you've deduced it using logic, or whether it's they appeal to you because they are different from what other people are saying. Because I think that's an easy trap to fall into. Verse 17 of Numbers 13 says, "And Moshe sent them out to spy out the land of Canaan, and said to them, Go up here into the south, and go up to the mountains, and see what the land is like, and the people who dwell in it, whether strong or weak, whether few or many, and whether the land they dwell in is good or evil, whether the cities they inhabit are in camps or strongholds, and whether the land is rich or poor, and whether there are forests there or not. And you shall be strong and bring some of the fruit of the land." Now the time was the season of the first fruits of the grapes. So the first fruits of the grape harvest would be just before Sukkot. We're told, as we saw in Torah portion of Moa, we're told that Sukkot is after you bring in the harvest of the grapes. So this would be just before Sukkot would have been. But the things that they are told to look out for are interesting. Strong or weak. Okay, so in Scripture we see that the strong are those who are faithful. Okay, the few or the many, who are the ones who make it? Are there many or are there few? Few there be that find the path that leads to life. Many there be that go on the broad way which leads to destruction. Whether the land they dwell in is good or evil, that's an easy one. Camps or strongholds. Okay, we see the camp of Israel. They're dwelling in camps at the moment. Also, we see it when the camp of the set-apart ones is surrounded in the book of Revelation. So camps are associated with those who are Yehovah's people. Strongholds, we see the overcoming of strongholds and them being something which is bad. Again, those who are rich versus those who are poor. Okay, I counsel you to buy of me gold refined in the fire. You don't realize that you are poor and pitiable, blind and naked. So it's interesting that these are the things that are told to see whether they are one or the other. I wonder what these things would have meant to Moshe when he sent them out. Why did he want to know if they were in camps or strongholds? Why did he want to know if there were forests or not? I would like to know what those things meant to Moshe. I mean, camps to strongholds, maybe if you're going on a military conquest, you want to know whether or not they're in fortified cities. It kind of makes sense to me. But these things would have had a different meaning to Moshe than the meaning that we see attributed to them in Scripture. And it kind of makes me think, well, Moshe spoke these words and they made sense to him as a man speaking them. See whether there's few or many, weak or strong. They're going to go in and conquer these people. So these would be reasonable things to wonder. But it just makes me think Moses was speaking these things naturally, and yet they had a greater significance to us when they're now recorded in the Torah for us to read. And it makes me wonder about the words that we all speak and the significance of them, whether we are speaking things that we don't even know. Verse 21 says, "And so they went up and spied out the land from the wilderness of Sin, as far as Rehov, near the entrance of Hamath. And they went up through the south and came to Hebron, and Achiman, and Sheshai, and Talmai, the descendants of Anak, were there. Now, Hebron had been built several years before Soan in Mitzrayim. And if you wonder what Soan in Mitzrayim has to do with anything, we read in Psalm 78, verses 42 to 44, we read of the significance of Soan in Egypt to these very people. They did not remember his hand the day when he redeemed them from the adversary, how he worked his signs in Egypt, his wonders in the field of Soan. He turned their rivers into blood, and they could not drink their streams. So Soan is where the children of Israel have been dwelling nearby to. It's certainly where Yehovah performed his signs and his wonders to free them from Egypt. So it's a place that they would have been familiar with. Verse 23 of Numbers 13 says, and they came to the Wadi Eshkol, and cut down from there a branch with one cluster of grapes, and they bore it between two of them on a pole, also of pomegranates and of the figs. That place was called the Wadi Eshkol because of the cluster which the men of Israel cut down from there. And they returned from spying out the land after 40 days. So it says that place was called Eshkol, or the Wadi Eshkol, or the Wadi of Eshkol it could be, because there is no word of in Hebrew. If you've got two nouns next to each other, they're in something called the construct state, which implies an of. So it could be the Wadi of Eshkol, but regardless. This is very much like, call his name Yeshua, for he will save his people from their sins. They called the name of the place Eshkol, because from there they cut down a cluster. Eshkol simply means cluster. So here the word that is translated as cluster is actually Eshkol. They called it Eshkol because of the Eshkol. Just like call him Yeshua because he will save his people. Or call him Yeshua because Yeshua his people from their sins. And they went and came to Moshe and Aharon and all the congregation of the children of Israel in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. And they brought back word to them and to all the congregation and showed them the fruit of the land. And they reported to him and said, we went to the land where you sent us, and truly it flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. But the people who dwell in the land are strong, and the cities are walled, very great. And we saw the descendants of Anak there too. Second time we've seen these descendants of the man called Anak mentioned. And the Amalekites dwelt in the land of the south, while the Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites dwell in the mountains. And the Canaanites dwell by the sea and along the banks of the Jordan, the Jordan. And Caleb silenced the people before Moshe and said, let us go up at once and take possession, for we are certainly able to overcome it. But the men who had gone up with him said, we are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than he. Now, it says we in many translations. The word in Hebrew is who, and it can mean he or we. A way that I was told to remember he and she in Hebrew is who is he and he is she. Because the word who means he means she. So that's a way that you can remember it. But who can also mean we. So when they say they are stronger than we in some translations, I would tend towards them saying they are stronger than he, as in Yehovah. It's not 100% clear, but because of what we see in the rest of the Torah portion and what is kind of implied by their behavior, that they lack faith in Yehovah who is leading them, I would tend towards he. And they gave the children of Israel an evil report of the land, which they had spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone as spies is a land eating up its inhabitants, and all the people whom we saw in it are men of great size. In Ezekiel 36, we see something similar to what we see here, with a land eating up its inhabitants. It's something that we can understand kind of idiomatically. It's the land eating up the inhabitants. We see something similar anyway in Ezekiel 36. It says, but you, O mountains of Israel, so the mountains of Israel are being addressed here, put forth your branches and bear your fruit to my people Israel, for they are about to come. For look, I am for you, and I shall turn to you, and you shall be tilled and sown, and I shall increase men upon you, all the house of Israel, all of it, and the city shall be inhabited, and the ruins rebuilt. And I shall increase upon you, again the mountains of Israel being addressed here, man and beast, and they shall increase and bear young, and I shall make you inhabited as of old, and do better for you than at your beginning. And you shall know that I am Yehovah, and I shall let men, my people, Israel, walk upon you, and let them possess you, and you shall be their inheritance, and no longer let you add to their bereavement. Let you, O mountains of Israel, add to their bereavement. So again, we have kind of the land here being anthropomorphized, given human attributes. We see the earth opened up and swallowed up Korah and the people who were with him. So we do see this device used in Hebrew. We see creation crying out because of the corruption that is therein. So we do see these things, and it's unclear whether or not that tells us something deeper about the nature of reality that we don't appreciate, yet Yehovah does, or whether it's just kind of a poetic device that's used in Hebrew. You'll get a whole load of people, I'm sure, who will tell you, oh, it's just a poetic device, without really understanding that these are actually the words of Yehovah. So in actuality, it could be either one of those things. Thus said the Master Yehovah, because they say to you, you, O mountains of Israel, devour men and have bereaved your nation. Therefore you shall no longer devour men and no longer bereave your nation, declares the Master Yehovah. And no longer shall I let you hear the insults of the Gentiles and the reproach of the peoples, and you shall bear no more, and no longer cause your nations to stumble, declares the Master Yehovah, which seems to be a lot to put on the mountains of Israel, that they devour men, bereave the nation, they cause your nations to stumble. And the word of Yehovah came to me, saying, Son of man, when the house of Israel dwelt in their own land, they defiled it by their own ways and deeds. To me their way was like the uncleanness of a woman in her monthly period. So I poured out my wrath on them, for the blood they had shed on the land, and with their idols they defiled it. And I scattered them among the Gentiles, and they were dispersed throughout the lands. I have judged them according to their ways and their deeds. So it certainly could be that saying to the mountains of Israel, you have caused people to go astray, is just like saying to Hasatan, you have caused people to go astray, when actually the word tells us that each man is enticed by what is in his own heart. So maybe the mountains of Israel have made Israel go astray in the same way that Hasatan does, by being something by which they are tempted. Again, it's not exactly clear in the text. Leviticus 18:24-25 says, do not defile yourselves with all these, for by all these the nations are defiled, which I am driving out before you. Thus the land became defiled, therefore I punished it for its crookedness, and the land vomited out its inhabitants. Again, it's not exactly clear what's going on here. I think my point is that we shouldn't assume that we know based on the way that we presume reality to be, that we should always be circumspect about interpreting scriptures one way or the other based upon assumptions. And we'll kind of touch on this with these men of Anak, these gigantes, as the Septuagint puts it, giants, men of great size. I think people have a lot of assumptions about the nature of those people, especially when you link it with a giant cluster of grapes. But we'll see that. So this is the verse. They gave the children of Israel an evil report of the land. One of the things they said was, all the people whom we saw in it are men of great size. Okay, so people have assumptions in this, that these men are giants who are 300 foot, 150 foot tall giants, maybe a bit smaller. Maybe some people think they're about 50 foot tall. But largely these ideas come from the book of Enoch. They're not things that we find in the scriptures. Every time we see in the scriptures the height of these men described, it's about 9 foot tall. So they were certainly men of great size. And we don't have many entries into the scriptures about these men. We have the size of Og, or Og of Bashan. His bed, it was about 9 foot tall, or 9 foot long rather, which would make him presumably 9 foot or less. Certainly not 150 foot sleeping on a 9 foot bed. But these ideas come from the book of Enoch. And I've done a video on the book of Enoch. It's called The Mysterious Book of Enoch. If anybody has a particular interest with the book of Enoch and you want a video which goes through the book bit by bit and really carefully examines the book, that video is 6 hours long plus. It's over 6 hours long. And I look at all of the different arguments that people make, both for the book of Enoch and against the book of Enoch. So if you want to watch that, it's called The Mysterious Book of Enoch. If you just want to see a video about the giants in the Bible and the giants in the book of Enoch, the contention that I'm exploring there is that the Bible agrees with Enoch on the nature of giants. So this video is on the channel. And if you look at the Examining Enoch series, and it may well be that I'll put these videos out again at some point in the future on the channel. But if you have interest in that subject particularly, if you say, well, they were the size of the cedars and all the other points that people bring up about the giants. There's a little bit of confusion with those things. So I look at those things in depth in this video here. And we saw there the Nephilim, sons of Anak of the Nephilim. And we were like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and so we were in their eyes. Then all the congregation lifted up their voices and cried, and the people wept that night. And all the children of Israel grumbled against Moshe and against Aaron. And all the congregation said to them, if only we had died in the land of Mitzrayim, or if only we had died in this wilderness. And why is Yehovah bringing us to this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and children should become a prey? Would it not be better for us to turn back to Egypt? So they say we were as grasshoppers in their eyes. That's one of the things that people look towards, and they say, well, how big is a grasshopper to a man? Well, the scriptures say that we are as grasshoppers in Yehovah's eyes as well, but that's not commenting on how big Yehovah is. It just means that they were small. They were men of great size, and we were as grasshoppers in their eyes. It's merely a figurative statement to say that we were small, not only in their eyes, but also in our eyes. And now the congregation, because of this evil report that has been brought of the land, they start to say, why did Yehovah bring us here to die by the sword? And we should be very careful with whether we do that in our own lives. Okay, it's not about being brought to the land and being faced with giants, but maybe Yehovah has given you a challenge. Maybe he's given you a test of your faith. Maybe you've started to keep the Torah recently. You've realized that you should be keeping Shabbat. That, in fact, rather than I should be keeping Shabbat, the Creator of the universe has told you that you may not work on Shabbat. That is a better way to look at it. Okay, I sometimes hear people say, I keep Shabbat when I'm able to, but that's a falsity by which they're deceiving themselves. We're always able to keep Shabbat. It might just be, though, that we are not willing to give something up in order to be able to keep Shabbat. So we say something akin to what these people are saying here. We might say, why did Yehovah free us from slavery to sin just to take my job and for my family to go destitute, and whatever other things we imagine in our heads because we're fearful? Because if Yehovah wasn't involved in the situation, then doing those things will put us in a bad situation, just as going into a land filled with giants would have put these people in a bad situation. Okay, if you are normal-sized men and you go into a land filled with men of great size, in the days when they're fighting with, weapons which are blunt force weapons, or that are stabbing weapons, bladed weapons, then going against men of great size would normally have you in a position where you would be killed. So that's how they view this situation. We must be careful not to do this with Yehovah and not kind of blaspheme Yehovah, which means to speak against his name. Okay, we know what his name is. We know that if we draw close to him, he will draw close to us. And so we should never be fearful that keeping any of his commands will have a bad effect. And as we'll see, Yehovah is not pleased with this people. He doesn't say, oh, actually, yeah, that's reasonable that you would think that the giants or the men of great size were going to kill you. That's normally what would happen. It's okay. Don't worry about it. As we'll see, Yehovah is very displeased with this people's lack of faith. And we should bear that in mind when we are speaking such things, because Yehovah sees us in that situation as speaking against him. Verse 4 of Numbers 14 said, they said to each other, let us appoint a leader and let us turn back to Mitzrayim. Okay, this is something that people are prone to do. It's another one of those things which is in our nature as people. Okay, if we see a leader saying something that we disagree with, we tend to want to appoint our own leaders. Paul tells us in 2 Timothy 4 verse 2, he says there will come a time when they will not endure sound teaching, but instead they will amass to themselves teachers who will tickle their ears. Okay, it's just something that people tend to do. Leaders are put in place by Yehovah to make decisions often between one person and another person. And in that situation, one person is going to agree, and one person is going to disagree. But the disagreement alone is not cause for that person to disregard somebody who has authority. In the situation with leaders of the world, we're actually told by Scripture something which is very much against our nature, that if we need to suffer unrighteously for the purpose of doing good, then that is what we should do. That is what Messiah did. Okay, so we don't decide, well, I am right in this situation, so I'm going to disregard the authority. But we see that this is something which is in these people. We're going to see in a few weeks' time, actually next week in Torah portion, Korach. Charlie's going to talk about Korach. And he was dissatisfied with his position, and he appoints himself as a leader, and we see 250 men of renown in the congregation begin to follow Korach, and these men turn against Moshe and Aharon. And we see that this is a behavior which is present in people, that they want to appoint their own leaders, people that they agree with when things get tough. Moses and Aaron are saying, go into the land filled with these huge men and fight them. And they say, don't think so. Let's appoint someone else and let's go back to Egypt. Verse 5 says that Moshe and Aharon fell on their faces before all the assembly of the congregation of the children of Israel. And Yehoshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had spied out the land, tore their garments. And they spoke to all the congregation of the children of Israel, saying, the land we passed through to spy out is an exceedingly good land. If Yehovah has delighted in us, then he shall bring us into this land and give it to us, a land which is flowing with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against Yehovah, nor fear the people of the land, for they are our bread. Their defense is turned away from them, and Yehovah is with us. Do not fear them. Okay, so Joshua and Caleb, or Yahushua and Caleb in Hebrew, they stand up and they say, no, wait there, this land is a very good land. If Yehovah is with us, or since Yehovah is with us, it could be translated. And if he is delighted in us, or since he is delighted in us, he shall bring us into this land and give it to us. Again, this is the attitude of the faithful towards commands which, to the rational human mind, which excludes Yehovah from being a part of the picture, when we're in situations that to the fleshly mind, as Scripture puts it, would make us to be afraid of the loss of something, or perhaps not gaining something which we desire to gain. The attitude of the mind of the Spirit is, well, this is what the Word says. This is what Yehovah has promised to us. We have faith in the Word that He will do what He has promised. So it really doesn't matter that this situation has come up. And these situations coming up in our own lives give us an opportunity that these people have here. But these people don't realize they're being given this opportunity. Okay, they just think that they're going to see bad consequences, that they have this promise, but they think that they can determine the outcome in the future for themselves. They don't realize that they're being given a test of their faith. We're told in Peter's letters that the testing of our faith is very valuable to us, because we get to show Yehovah that we believe His word. We believe the things that Yehovah has promised to us. And in such a way, we get to prove that we are like Abraham. Okay, all of us have sinned and have fallen short of the glory of Yehovah. So it's no longer open to us that we would have walked all of our lives righteously. If we want to have righteousness accredited to us, then our only hope is to be like Abraham. Abraham wasn't a perfect person. There was nobody who was perfect in the Scriptures apart from Yeshua. But we get to prove that we are like Abraham and have faith or belief accounted to us for righteousness. Yehovah affords us that opportunity to be declared right in His sight. None of these people could be declared right by the Torah which they had been given. All of them were sinful. The only opportunity that they had was to show that they had faith, just like their forefathers, that they had faith in what Yehovah had said. Now, it says that these things in 1 Corinthians 10, it tells us that these things were written as an example to us. So we can learn by these things. We can see, well, they had an opportunity to prove their faith here, and they didn't take it. So when these things arise in our own lives, we have an opportunity to take hold of them and to say, yes, I'm afraid of the consequences, but that in and of itself gives me the opportunity to prove that I believe the word of Yehovah, that I walk after the mind of the Spirit rather than the mind of the flesh. So it says here, their defense has turned away. The word for defense is sel. The word for turned away is sur. So let's look at those words. Sel means shadow or shade. So again, this word is used figuratively here. It's not talking about a literal shade. We see these figurative terms used all the way throughout Scripture. So we see this word and we can see that defense is a reasonable translation. It talks about them coming under the cell of my roof. This is Lot saying here of the angels who have come to him. Do no deed to these men, because they have come under the cell of my roof. Psalm 17:18, we have a prayer that Yehovah would hide us under the cell of His wings, the shadow of His wings. Okay, you could see this as being the defense of his wings, but rarely sell doesn't mean defense outright. But we can understand that to be under someone's shadow would be to be kind of with them over you, so to speak. You being under their protection or defense. For you shall be a refuge to the poor, a refuge to the needy in his distress, a shelter from the storm, a shade from the heat. So, okay, shade here, or shadow from the heat, a defense from the heat, if you like. For the spirit of the ruthless is like a storm against a wall. You subdue the noise of foreigners as heat in a dry place, as heat in the exact same word there, but it's translated shadow here, shade here, of a cloud. The singing of the ruthless is subdued. In Ezekiel 31, 2-6, it says, Son of man, say to Pharaoh, king of Mitzrayim, and to his crowd, to whom are you to be compared in your greatness? See, Ashur was a cedar in Lebanon, fair branches, and a forest shade, and of high stature, and its top was among the thick foliage. Ashur being Assyria. So again, this is like their height was as the height of the cedars. We read in scripture of the strength of the oak tree. Doesn't mean it was literally like for like, as strong as an oak tree is strong, just as Assyria being spoken of here as a cedar and having its top being among the thick foliage isn't saying that is literally true, or that it literally has branches and shade. So I'm trying to draw your attention through all these examples to the point that, you know, we're not to be misled and led astray by people coming and saying, oh, look, their height was as the cedars. How high is a cedar tree? 150 feet tall. That means they were 150 feet tall, which matches with the book of Enoch's description. That logic is just so patchy, and it's not good logic. The waters made him great. The deep gave it height, with its rivers running around its planting, and sent their channels to all the trees of the field. Therefore, its height was lifted up above all the trees of the field. And this is talking about Assyria, which is a country. And its boughs were increased, and its branches became long because of the many waters as it sent them out. All the birds of the heavens made their nests in its bough, and under its branches all the beasts of the field gave birth, and in its cell all great nations dwelt. Not that it was literally a tree, that it literally cast shade, but again, it's figurative. Okay, if you say somebody is as strong as an oak tree, as tall as the cedar trees, you're just saying that they're strong and tall, greatly so. Assyria isn't being described here as a literal tree with literal shade. It was under the defense of Assyria that these people were. Isaiah 30:1-3 says, Woe to the stubborn children, declares Jehovah, to make counsel, but not from me, and to devise plans, but not of my spirit, in order to add sin to sin, who are setting out to go down to Egypt, and have not asked my mouth, to be strengthened in the strength of Pharaoh, and to seek refuge in the shadow of Mitzrayim. And the strength of Pharaoh shall become your shame, and the refuge in the cell of Mitzrayim, shadow of Mitzrayim, defense of Mitzrayim, your confusion. So what's this talking about? It's talking about the Israelites looking to Egypt as their defense rather than to Yehovah. The other word was the word suah. It means to turn aside or to depart from. See here, a primitive root, to turn off, literally or figuratively. So it's talking about turning away from, departing from. So when it says their cell, their shadow, or their shade has turned away from them, and Yehovah is with us, do not fear them. Now we can understand what he said, but I wanted to go into that a little bit so that you can see the way in which the scriptures are written and with the ways in which Hebrew works, and that we shouldn't get caught up when we're thinking, oh, well, they were literally going to have to go in to face 150-foot giants. That is not necessarily the case. That the scriptures never describe these men of great size as anything other than men of great size. Joshua 15:13-14 tells us of these men that we've been hearing of, the descendants of Anak. To Caleb, same Caleb that we're reading about, Caleb, son of Jephunneh, he gave a portion in the midst of the children of Yehudah, according to the command of Yehovah to Joshua. Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, again the same Hebron we've read of. Arba was the father of Anak. And Caleb drove out the three sons of Anak from there, Sheshai and Achiman and Talmai, the children of Anak. Again, these people were huge people. But when you read of Kiriath Arba, that is a place known as Hebron, and Kiriath Arba is named after Anak's father. Judges 1:8-10 says the children of Yehudah fought against Jerusalem and captured it and smote it with the edge of the sword and set the city on fire. And afterward the children of Judah went down to fight the Canaanites who dwelt in the mountains in the south and in every low country, and in the low country, And Yehudah went against the Canaanites who dwelt in Hebron. Now the name of Hebron was formerly Kiriath Arba, as we read, named after Anak's father. And they smote Sheshai and Achiman and Talmai. So Caleb, all the way throughout his life, even when he gets old, is always of the same mind. It doesn't matter if the men are massive, we'll go and we'll take the land. It doesn't matter if I am 160 years old, if Yehovah is with me, who can be against me? And so, if you can take anything from this Torah portion, take that attitude of mind and apply it to the situations in which you find yourself. However, the children of Israel didn't do this. All the congregation said to stone them with stones, and the esteem of Yehovah appeared in the tent of meeting before all the children of Israel. And we'll come back in the second part and we'll look at the issue of they've seen Yehovah doing amazing things, beyond amazing things in their midst, and yet they still do not have belief in him. We'll come back in part 2. Okay, so in this part, what I want to look at is the fact that when people see evidence of Yehovah, that's not enough to cause what the Bible describes as belief in Yehovah. All of these people knew that Yehovah existed. Presumably they'd seen all of the the signs and wonders in Egypt, how the Red Sea had parted, etc. So they knew that he existed, but they didn't believe in him, and those things are different. I think often we can think that if only we could show somebody evidence that God exists, that they would turn to him. But that's not how Scripture describes the situation. In fact, Scripture describes something entirely different, that sometimes people will see and understand, but they will not believe. Numbers 14:10 says, "But all the congregation said to stone them with stones. Then the esteem of Yehovah appeared in the tent of meeting before all the children of Israel." So I want to look next at Psalm 69, where David is describing, because he has zeal for Yehovah's way of doing things, others kind of reproach him for it. And this is what we're seeing with Moshe and Aharon here. They're telling people this is what Yehovah says to do. And because people don't like it, they want to appoint a leader for themselves and go back to Egypt. They are displeased with Moshe and Aharon, and in fact we see them here. They want to stone them for this. So Psalm 69 says, "O Elohim, you yourself know my foolishness, and my guilt has not been hidden from you. Let not those who wait for you, O Master Yehovah Sabaoth, be ashamed because of me. Let not those who seek you be humbled because of me, O Elohim of Israel. Because I have borne reproach for your sake. Shame has covered my face. I have become a stranger to my brothers and a foreigner to my mother's children. Because zeal for your house has eaten me up, and the reproaches of those who reproach you have fallen on me. And I wept in my soul with fasting, and it became my reproach. And when I put on sackcloth, I became a proverb to them. They who sit in the gate talk about me. I am the song of the drunkards. But as for me, my prayer is to you, O Yehovah. At an acceptable time, O Elohim, in the greatness of your kindness, answer me in the truth of your deliverance. Rescue me out of the mire. Let me not sink. Let me be rescued from those who hate me and out of the deep waters. Let not a flood of waters overflow me, nor let the deep swallow me up, nor let the pit shut its mouth on me. Answer me, O Yehovah, for your kindness is good. According to the greatness of your compassion, turn to me. And do not hide your face or your presence from your servant, for I am in distress. Answer me speedily. Draw near to my soul, redeem it. Ransom me because of my enemies. You yourself know my reproach, and my shame, and my confusion. My adversaries are all before you. Reproach has broken my heart, and I am sick. I looked for sympathy, but there was none, and for comforters, but I found none. And they gave me gall for my food, and for my thirst they gave me vinegar to drink. So this is David talking about himself. Obviously, we can see parts of this which were also fulfilled in Yeshua, and I would suggest that it's exactly the same thing with Yeshua as was going on with Moshe and Aharon here. Yeshua was teaching the word of Yehovah as it was, what was actually required of people. But people at the time had kind of fallen into their little religious system and their own ways of doing things. And when a man came and started speaking the truth, they didn't like it. And we see David here. He says, they who sit in the gate, so that would be important people in each town, talk about me, and I am the song of the drunkards. So David is speaking here about how the reproach of the people, from those in high position to those in low position, has come upon him because of his zeal for Yehovah's house. Exactly the same as Moshe and Aharon, exactly the same as Yeshua. Isaiah 46 verse 9 says, "Remember the former events of old, for I am El, and there is no one else, Elohim, and there is no one like me." And there's a profound truth in this, in that Elohim is distinct from everyone. If you think those who desire and have a zeal for Yehovah are separated from people, and they're not like them, and they get the reproach of other people because, they're saying, well, we should be doing the word of Yehovah as it actually is. Think of how it is for Elohim. He is completely distinct from the world, even from those who are seeking him. And he has created a situation whereby those who are seeking him, he can come and tabernacle with them, and they will be his people, and he will be their Elohim. Think about what ultimately he is going to establish for himself on the earth. And if you feel the same way that David feels in this psalm, then just know that Yehovah is gathering a people whom he will take to the land to live in the kingdom, all of those who are distinct from the people whose reproach they receive. And they will all dwell together in the land together, the people who actually get who Yehovah is. Verse 11 says, "And Yehovah spoke to Moshe, how long shall I be scorned by these people?" Like David spoke of, their reproach has fallen upon me when they reproach you. "And how long shall I not be trusted by them with all the signs that I have done in their midst?" So here we see that Yehovah himself is saying, listen, I've done a load of signs. It's essentially like when he says, what more could I have done for these people? There is nothing more that I can do. I've shown my power, I've shown who I am to them, and yet they do not have faith in me. They don't trust me. They don't believe me. And this is the way of things. Again, often we think, if only I could show this person or that person that God exists, then they would turn. But it's just not the case. It's not how we see people in Scripture being. It's not how the people in Revelation are. They end up blaspheming God because of the plagues rather than seeing his power and turning to him. They blaspheme his name. In Acts 2:22 it says, "Men of Israel, hear these words, Yeshua of Nazareth, a man from Elohim, having been pointed out to you by mighty works and wonders and signs which Elohim did through him in your midst, as you yourselves also know." So as we're looking at these scriptures that we're going to look at, remember that Yeshua did these signs in their midst. So when we're looking at whether they believed him or not, remember that he came accompanied by signs from Elohim. Deuteronomy 3:21-22 says, "And I commanded Yahushua at that time, saying, Your eyes have seen all that Yehovah your Elohim has done to these two kings. Yehovah does the same to all the kings which you are passing over. Do not fear them, for Yehovah your Elohim himself fights for you." So they had already seen, this is the second generation that are being spoken to here after the first generation die because of what we're looking at in this week's Torah portion. But the second generation were in the same position. Their eyes had seen everything that Elohim had actually done to their enemies, just as the first generation had in Egypt. They're told, do not fear, for Yehovah, your Elohim himself, fights for you. And yet this is not necessarily the reaction of all the people, as it's certainly not in the case of the first generation here. So suppose the point that I'm making is that one can see things that should make one believe and yet not believe. Exodus 7 verse 3 says, but I'm going to harden the heart of Pharaoh and shall increase my signs and my wonders in the land of Mitzrayim. And we see this with Pharaoh. He obviously sees all of these signs and wonders that Yehovah does in his land, and yet he never comes to believe in Yehovah. And what we actually see is Yehovah hardens his heart. It's why Yeshua says that they have eyes but they cannot see. Okay, they see the things that are being done, but they don't understand, they don't truly perceive. And the reason that he gives is lest they should understand with their heart and turn to me and be healed. It's not what he wants. He says they have a hard heart lest they should turn to me, and then they will be healed because they are turned to me. He's not after a people who see and understand and say, oh wait there, God exists, therefore I should do God's word, and that means that I would be forgiven of sin. Okay, I don't really love him, I don't really want to turn to him, but I will in order to be healed. Doesn't want people to kind of figure things out like that and turn to him for that reason. He's looking for a bride. He's looking for people who actually get him. So just as he made Pharaoh's heart hard, beware lest he hardens you in your stubbornness. If you come to something and you decide that you're either going to continue doing something or you're not going to do something that you should, you have hardened your heart to his word. And if that's because you refuse to submit to his word, you refuse to see it for what it is, then beware lest he would harden your heart in that to a certain thinking. It's, there's nothing really that you can do if your heart's like that. But if you're aware of that within yourself, you have the opportunity to repent. John 6:12-15 says, then the men, having seen the sign that Yeshua did, and this is the feeding of the 5,000, said, this is truly the prophet who is coming to the world. So they see and they understand. But belief in signs is not a belief in anything stable. We'll get on to where signs and the belief in signs is appropriate. Then Yeshua, knowing that they were about to come and seize him, that they might make him king, withdrew again to the mountain alone by himself. And these are a people who are not people who truly believe the word. They just saw evidence that he was the prophet who is coming to the world, as it says here. They saw evidence that he was Messiah. But as I say, belief in signs like these people have is not a belief in something stable. Really, signs are to show the truth of the message. So it's not belief in the signs, and therefore belief in the one who's doing the signs. It's belief in the message which accompanies the signs, which is true belief. The people of Israel in our Torah portion, they will have seen all the signs and wonders, but they didn't believe in Yehovah. They didn't believe his word. They didn't believe in his Torah. They just knew that he was powerful and he could do signs and wonders. In Acts 8, 5-23, it says, "And going down to the city of Shomeron, Philip proclaimed Messiah to them. And the crowds with one mind heeded what Philip said, hearing and seeing the miracles which he did. For unclean spirits came out of many who were possessed, crying with a loud voice, and many who were paralyzed and lame were healed. And there came to be great joy in that city. Now there was a certain man called Shimon, or Simon the sorcerer as people know him, who formerly was practicing magic in the city and astonishing the people of Shomeron, claiming to be someone great." So what we see here is great joy coming to be in the city when they see these signs. It reminds me of the parable of the sower, that sometimes people receive the word with joy, and it's only when testing arises because of the word that they go astray, because they love the world, or because persecution arises because of the word, or whatever it is. Now, we see what sort these people were, because Shimon had been practicing magic among them, and they were greatly impressed by this magic. They were astonished at his magic. So he does magic, they all turn to him. Someone comes along doing signs and wonders, they all think that that's amazing. Verse 10 says, "To whom they were all giving heed, from the least to the greatest, saying, This one is the power of Elohim, which is great." Okay, so just because Shimon came practicing magic, they ascribed this to him. And they were giving heed to him because for a long time he had amazed them with his magic. When they believed Philip as he brought the good news about the kingdom of Elohim and the name of Yeshua Messiah, both men and women were immersed. So we have some baptisms here. And Shimon himself also believed. And when he was immersed, he continued with Philip and was amazed seeing the miracles and signs which took place. So you can see how somebody can be amazed by signs, wonders, miracles, whatever, but not be a believer in Yehovah truly. Someone can be baptized, someone can receive the word with great joy. It's accompanied by signs and wonders. Brilliant. It's only when they're tested that you truly know where someone's heart is, which is why you'll find a lot of people who profess to follow Yehovah, profess to follow the scriptures, profess to believe in him, but they're not true believers. They don't actually believe the word in the same way that perhaps you do. Verse 14 says, "And when the apostles who were at Jerusalem heard that Shomeron had received the word of Elohim, they sent Kepha and Yochanan to them." So Shomeron is Samaria, Kepha is Peter, Yochanan is John, who when they had come down prayed for them to receive the set-apart spirit. For he had not fallen on any of them, but they had only been immersed in the name of the Master Yeshua. Then they laid hands on them, and they received the set-apart spirit. And Shimon, seeing that through the laying on of hands of the apostles of the set-apart spirit, the set-apart spirit was given, he offered them money, saying, "Give me this authority too, so that anyone I lay hands on shall receive the set-apart spirit." But Peter said to him, "Let your silver perish with you, because you thought to buy the gift of Elohim through money. You have neither part nor lot in this matter, for your heart is not right before Elohim. Repent therefore of this evil of yours, and plead with Elohim to forgive you the intention of your heart. For I see that you are poisoned by bitterness and bound by unrighteousness. And this is really the attitude of a lot of people who, like the people who think, oh, all I have to do is say the sinner's prayer, and then I have forgiveness from Elohim, like they've bought the gift of Elohim, their salvation, whereas Elohim gives his gift to those whom he will give it to. We can't give anything to Elohim. We certainly can't say some words and then he is bound as if by a contract to us because we've done something for him. No man can pay for the ransom of his soul. Okay, and here Peter identifies, you are poisoned by bitterness and bound by unrighteousness. And that is the same reason that other people will see signs from Elohim and they will believe in the signs. They'll believe that Elohim exists, but they won't believe in him in the way that we'll see. Exodus 14:30-31 says, Thus Yehovah saved Israel that day out of the hand of the Mitzrites, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. And Israel saw the great work which Yehovah had done in Mitzrayim, and the people feared Yehovah and believed Yehovah and his servant Moshe. Okay, so it tells us here, that the people saw what had been done, and they believed Yehovah and his servant Moshe at that time. Okay, but we see in our Torah portion today that they do not believe in Yehovah afterwards. So it's possible to receive the word with joy, so to speak, and then afterwards, when you are tried, to turn away from it. So don't be deceived by the fact that you heard Elohim's word and you believed it, because it will be required of you to prove your belief. And that's a good thing, that through the testing of your faith, you will be found worthy at Yeshua's revelation. John 20:26-31 says, And after 8 days his disciples were again inside, and Tomah with them. Yeshua came, and the doors having been shut, he stood in their midst and said, Shalom to you. Then he said to Tomah, Bring your finger here and see my hands, and bring your hand and put it into my side, and do not be unbelieving, but believing. And Tomah answered and said to him, My master and my Elohim. Yeshua said to him, Tomah, because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and have believed. There were indeed many other signs that Yeshua did in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book. But these have been written so that you believe that Yeshua is the Messiah, the Son of Elohim, and that believing you might possess life in his name. Not believing you will possess life in his name, believing you might possess life in his name. So Yeshua says, look, you've seen and therefore you've believed. That's great. Blessed are those who have not seen me and yet have believed, which would be all of us, or hopefully it would be all of us. John 4:46-53 says, Then Yeshua came again to Cana of Galilee, where he had made the water wine, and there was a certain nobleman whose son was sick at Capharnaum. When he heard that Yeshua had come from Yehudah into Galilee, he went to him and was asking him to come down and heal his son, for he was about to die. Yeshua then said to him, If you do not see signs and wonders, you do not believe at all. The nobleman said to him, Master, come down before my child dies. Yeshua said to him, Go, your son lives. And the man believed the word that Yeshua spoke to him and went. And that's what true faith is, to believe the word, not having seen the evidence. Hebrews 11, in fact, tells us faith or belief, pistis, is the evidence of things unseen. While he was going down, his servants met him and reported, saying, Your son lives. He then asked from them the hour in which he became better, and they said, Yesterday at the 7th hour, the inflammation left him. Then the father knew that it was the same hour in which Yeshua said to him, Your son lives. And he himself believed, and all his household. In Matthew 12:38-42 it says, Then some of the scribes and Pharisees answered, saying, Teacher, we wish to see a sign from you. But he answered and said to them, A wicked and adulterous generation seeks after a sign, and no sign shall be given to it, except the sign of the prophet Jonah. So this isn't saying that you are wicked and adulterous if you seek after a sign. He's saying this generation is seeking for a sign, and no sign is going to be given to it, except the sign of the prophet Jonah. For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the stomach of the great fish, so shall the Son of Adam be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. Men of Nineveh shall stand up in the judgment with this generation and condemn it, because they repented at the preaching of Jonah, and look, a greater than Jonah is here. So again, it's not about the sign and believing the sign. It's about the message which accompanies the sign. We'll see more of that as we go on. But the men of Nineveh believed and repented at what Jonah preached to them. And he's saying, look, one greater than Jonah is here now, and you don't believe. The sign isn't going to make people believe or not believe. It's whether they believe the message. And the people of Nineveh, although they were wicked before they repented, when they heard the message, they repented appropriately. The queen of the south shall rise up in the judgment with this generation, and shall condemn it, for she came from the ends of the earth to hear the wisdom of Shlomo, and look, a greater than Shlomo is here. So, the queen of Sheba, queen of the south, she shall rise up in the judgment with this generation, so with the wicked and adulterous generation that was seeking the sign. And she will condemn it. Why? Because she heard the wisdom of Solomon and she believed. She heard the wisdom. She believed. It wasn't about how amazing Solomon appeared to her, just like it wasn't about the sign of Jonah to the people. It was about the message which accompanied it. John 2:13-22 says, And the Passover of the Yehudim, the Jews, was near, and Yeshua went up to Jerusalem. And he found in the set-apart place those selling oxen and sheep and doves, and the money changers sitting. And having made a whip of cords, he drove them all out of the set-apart place with the sheep and the oxen, and he poured out the money changers' coins and overturned the tables. And he said to those selling doves, Take these away. Do not make the house of my Father a house of merchandise. And his disciples remembered that it was written, The zeal for your house has eaten me up. That's what we read before from David in Psalm 69. And the Jews answered and said to him, What sign do you show to us, since you are doing these? Yeshua answered and said to them, destroy this dwelling place, and in 3 days I shall raise it. Then the Jews said, it took 46 years to build this dwelling place, and you are going to raise it in 3 days? But he spoke about the dwelling place of his body. So when he was raised from the dead, his disciples remembered that he said this to them, and they believed the scripture and the word which Yeshua had said. So they saw the sign and they believed it. Why? Because they believed what Yeshua had said, and they believed the scripture it's told to us here. Okay? To people who don't have that belief, it really doesn't matter what signs they see. You know, they might explain it away. Maybe the rulers said, oh, somebody took his body from the tomb, or whatever things people imagine. But even if the rulers had seen Yeshua raised from the dead, and they said, this is the man whom we have killed, they still would not have believed the scripture. So it's not about the sign. It's not about seeing the sign and saying, oh, wow, look, an amazing sign. It's about the message which is accompanied. Do you believe the word? Is that then accompanied with signs and wonders which approve, for want of a better word, the message? Luke 11:29-32 says, while the crowds were thronging, he began to say, this generation is wicked. It seeks a sign, and no sign shall be given to it except the sign of Jonah the prophet. For as Jonah became a sign to the Ninevites, or the Nineveh, or the Nineveh, I suppose, so also the son of Adam shall be to this generation. The queen of the south shall rise up in judgment with the men of this generation, and shall condemn them, for she came from the ends of the earth to hear the wisdom of Shlomo, and look, a greater than Shlomo is here. The men of Nineveh shall rise up in the judgment with this generation, and shall condemn it, for they repented at the preaching of Jonah, and look, a greater than Jonah is here. So I hope you can see, it's not about the messenger, it's not about somebody coming and doing signs and wonders, because as we see with Simon, such things can be false. Okay, he was practicing magic and he was astonishing the people, and they all turned and they believed in him because of the signs. What is important is the message. Our people, the Queen of Sheba, was she believing the wisdom? Did the men of Nineveh repent at the preaching of Jonah? Yeshua is saying, look, far greater than either Solomon or Jonah is here before you, and you do not believe me. They will stand up in the judgment with all of you, and they will be found in a better position than you are, because they believe the message, not the sign. Matthew 16:1-4 says, and the Pharisees and Sadducees came, and trying him asked that he would show them a sign from heaven. And he answering said to them, when it is evening, you say fair weather, for the heaven is red. And in the morning, stormy weather today, for the heaven is red and overcast. You know how to discern the face of the heaven, but you are unable to discern the signs of the times. A wicked and adulterous generation seeks after a sign, and no sign shall be given it except the sign of the prophet Jonah. And he left them and went away. And this has always stood out to me about Yeshua. He was never chasing after people to try and convince them of anything. When people came to him and they were like, oh, what about this and what about that? He would just give them a very simple answer. Here, it seems that he is in, He's kind of despairing about these people. And he's saying, look, you know how to interpret signs that you see in the heavens. If the sky's red, you know what it means. If it's red and overcast in the morning, you know what that means. But you can't interpret that which is right here before you. He had come, the son of Elohim, preaching the word of Elohim, and they didn't understand. Then they asked after a sign, and he's saying, you, this generation, are wicked and adulterous because you seek after a sign. When I've come, and I couldn't be any more to you, I've come preaching the word of Elohim. I am the son of Elohim, and you don't understand. And now you ask for a sign as if that's going to make any difference to you. John 12, 34 to 48 says, the crowd answered him, we have heard out of the Torah that the Messiah remains forever. And how do you say the son of Adam has to be lifted up? Who is the son of Adam? Yeshua therefore said to them, yet a little while the light is with you. Walk while you have the light, lest darkness overtake you. He who walks in darkness does not know where he is going. While you have the light, believe in the light so that you become sons of light. These words Yeshua spoke and went off and was hidden from them. But though he had done so many signs before them, they did not believe him. So this is a good example of what I was talking about. Yeshua doesn't really chase after people. He's not saying, look, I am the Son of God. Look at this amazing sign that I can do. He just very simply says to them, the light's only going to be with you a little time. While you have the light, believe in the light. Because that's the crux of the whole matter, that we believe the word. That we believe in the light. And they had seen many signs from him, but they didn't believe in him. Sometimes people will see signs and believe, as we've seen. Sometimes they'll see signs and won't believe, but it really doesn't matter as long as they don't believe the message. In other words, they are the same. Whether you see a sign and believe because of it, but you don't believe the underlying message, or you see a sign and you don't believe, it's the same thing, because in both cases, you don't believe the word, you don't believe the message which accompanies the sign. The sign is irrelevant. That the word of Isaiah the prophet might be filled, which he spoke, Yehovah, who has believed our report, and to whom has the arm of Yehovah been revealed. Because of this, they were unable to believe, because again, Yeshayahu said, he has blinded their eyes and hardened their heart, so that they should not see with their eyes and understand with their heart and turn, and I should heal them. Isaiah said this when he saw his esteem and spoke of him. Still, even among the rulers, many did believe him, but because of the Pharisees, they did not confess him, lest they should be put out of the congregation. So that they loved the praise of men more than the praise of Elohim. Then Yeshua cried out and said, he who believes in me believes not in me, but in him who sent me. And he who sees me sees him who sent me. I have come as a light into the world, so that no one who believes in me should stay in darkness. And if anyone hears my words but does not watch over them, I do not judge him, for I did not come to judge the world, but to save the world. He who rejects me and does not receive my words has one who judges him. The word that I have spoken shall judge him in the last day. So again, it's all about the message. To certain people, they have been blinded, as I say, so that they don't understand the message. And that's not because Yehovah capriciously chooses to blind them and say, right, you guys will never see it. Their hearts are hardened like Pharaoh's heart was hardened, because that's where their heart, where their spirit is. Yeshua just said, look, I'm the light. The light's only going to be here for a certain while. Believe in the light while the light is here. To those people, those who understand the kingdom of heaven, more will be given. More will be revealed to them, because they truly understand the word when they hear it. So they have more and more revealed to them. Those who are hard of heart, Yehovah has blinded their eyes. So even if they believe signs that are done before them, and they say, wow, there truly is a God, I believe in God, doesn't make any difference, because they're blind to the actual truth, the actual light. It is the message, the truth behind it, which is important, as I say. 1 Corinthians 1:18-31 says, for the word of the cross is indeed foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of Elohim, because we have believed the word. We can see it for what it is. We're not blind to it. For it has been written, I shall destroy the wisdom of the wise, and set apart the learning of the learned ones. Where is the wise? Where is the scholar? Where is the debater of this age? Has not Elohim made foolish the wisdom of this world? For since in the wisdom of Elohim the world through wisdom did not know Elohim, it pleased to Elohim through the foolishness of preaching to save those who believe. And since Jews ask a sign and Greeks seek wisdom, yet we proclaim Messiah crucified, to the Jews a stumbling block, and to the Greeks foolishness. Why? Because they don't believe the underlying message, the wisdom or the sign, wisdom of this world, that being, is irrelevant, which accompanies it. Okay? So we often think also, as well, as if only we could show them proof of Elohim, then they would believe. I think sometimes also we think, if only we could explain these things in terms that they would understand, in terms of the wisdom that they understand. Maybe if we could put things in scientific terms, maybe then they will believe. But that's simply not true. The problem is that they don't believe in the light, so they don't come to the light. The problem isn't that we haven't shown them enough evidence for it. But to those who are called, both Jews and Greeks, Messiah, the power of Elohim and the wisdom of Elohim. For the foolishness of Elohim is wiser than men, and the weakness of Elohim is stronger than men. For look at your calling, brothers, that there were not many wise according to the flesh, not many mighty, not many noble. But Elohim has chosen the foolish matters of the world to put to shame the wise, and Elohim has chosen the weak of the world to put to shame the strong. And Elohim has chosen the lowborn of the world and the despised and the ones that are not, that he might bring to naught the ones that are, so that no flesh should boast in his presence. And of him you are in Messiah, Messiah Yeshua, who became for us wisdom from Elohim, righteousness also, and set apartness and redemption. That as it has been written, he who boasts, let him boast in Yehovah, because that's the only thing in which there is any value. Okay, so Jews seek a sign, the Greeks seek for wisdom, whatever it might be. The people look for, and they think in their hearts, I suppose, that if they had something of that sort, they would understand Messiah. They would believe in God. They would believe in Messiah. But what this explains to us is the thing in which there is truly value is understanding Yahovah. As we read in Jeremiah 9:23-24, thus said Yahovah, let not the wise boast in his wisdom, let not the mighty boast in his might, nor let the rich boast in his riches. But let him who boasts boast of this, that he understands and knows me, that I am Yahovah, doing kindness, judgment, and righteousness in the earth. For in these I delight, declares Yahovah. So again, it's not the sign, it's not the wisdom which is important. It is understanding Yahovah, believing Yahovah is who he says that he is. That he understands that I do kindness, and justice, and righteousness in the earth. That is what they take from the word, that those things are true because they believe them. And that's really the only way that you will ever be able to perform the word of Elohim when you're tested. Because if you don't have that, if you don't understand who he is, if you don't believe in him, then why would you go into a land with men of great size? Why would you not work on the Sabbath just because the Bible tells you to? Why would you do that if you didn't believe in Yahovah? John 6:25-46 says, therefore, when the crowd saw that Yeshua was not there, nor his disciples, they themselves also entered into the boats and came to Capharnaum seeking Yeshua. Having found him on the other side of the sea, they asked him, Rabbi, when did you come here? Yeshua answered them and said, truly, truly, I say to you, you seek me, not because you saw signs, but because you ate the loaves and were satisfied. Do not labor for the food that is perishing, but for the food that is remaining to everlasting life, which the Son of Adam shall give you. For the Father, Elohim, has set his seal on him. So, just like the Jews seeking after wisdom, the Greeks seeking after wisdom, the Jews seeking after a sign, here these people, they believed in him because he gave them food. And what does he do? Again, he's not running after them to try and explain everything to them and make them understand. He simply says, don't labor for the food that's perishing, but for the to the food rather, that is remaining to everlasting life. He doesn't then try and set all of that out to them and say, the food that is remaining, everlasting, the food that endures is this, that, and the other. He just says, don't labor for food that is perishing. Labor for food that remains and it endures. So they said to him, what should we do to work the works of Elohim? Yeshua answered and said to them, this is the work of Elohim, that you believe in him whom he sent. Okay, as he said, he who sees me sees him who sent me. And so if you believe in me, you believe in him, because I do the works that he has given me to do. Part of what it is to be a light to the Gentiles is for us to do the works that Elohim has given us to do. And through them seeing us, they see him. And through them believing the things that we do are good, they believe that he is good. So they said to him, what sign then would you do so that we see and believe you? What would you do? Our fathers ate the manna in the wilderness, as it has been written. He gave them bread out of the heaven to eat. Therefore Yeshua said to them, truly, truly, I say to you, Moshe did not give you the bread out of heaven, but my Father gives you the true bread out of heaven. For the bread of Elohim is he who comes down out of heaven and gives life to the world. So they said to him, Master, give us this bread always. So again, he's not chasing after them. He's not trying to do this, that, and the other to convince them. He just very simply says to them, bread of Elohim is he who comes down out of heaven and gives life to the world. If you understand, you understand. If you believe in me, it's because you believe in him. It's very simple in the way that he approaches people and lets people go their own way if that's what they want. Yeshua said to them, I am the bread of life. He who comes to me shall not get hungry at all, and he who believes in me shall not get thirsty at all. But I say to you that you have seen me and still do not believe. All that the Father gives me shall come to me, and the one who comes to me I shall by no means cast out, because I have come down out of heaven not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. This is the will of the Father who sent me, that all he has given me I should not lose of it, but should raise it in the last day. And this is the will of him who sent me, that everyone who sees the Son and believes in him should possess everlasting life, and I shall raise him up in the last day. So he simply tells them these things that are true. He's not, it seems, concerned with explaining how that's all going to be and how it all works. He just speaks the truth to them, knowing that those who believe the truth will be saved. Therefore the Jews were grumbling against him because he said, I am the bread which came down out of the heaven. And they said, is not this Yeshua the son of Yosef, whose father and mother we know? How is it then that he says, I have come down out of heaven? Then Yeshua answered and said to them, do not grumble with one another. No one is able to come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him, and I shall raise him up in the last day. And how will the Father draw people? Well, it's those who believe. He says, no one is able to come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him. Okay, so no one is going to be able to come to Yeshua to be saved unless they believe the word and they're drawn by the word. Those who believe in the light and come to the light because they understand it when they see it. I think very many times we get so caught up thinking that we're going to be able to convince people who are walking in darkness of whatever it is about Elohim, that we're going to be able to make them see. When the truth, it seems, is that if they see it, they see it. And they're drawn by the Father when they see it. No one else is able to come to him because they're not drawn by him. It has been written in the prophets, and they shall all be taught by Yehovah. Everyone then who has heard from the Father and learned comes to me. Not that anyone has seen the Father except he who is from Elohim. He has seen the Father. Okay. Again, what does it mean by seeing the Father? He who is from Elohim has seen the Father. Well, what did he say? He who has seen me has seen the Father, because I do the works that the Father's given me to do. Paraphrasing what he said there, but that's the basic gist of what he said. So, no one has seen the Father except he who is from Elohim. These statements are incredibly profound, and he's telling them all of this truth plainly. He's speaking to them the truth plainly, but the ones who hear it and understand it and see the Father in what he's saying, they are the ones who will come to the Father. All the rest of them, he could have said whatever he wanted to them. If they didn't believe what he was saying, they didn't believe the word. If they hadn't seen the Father, so to speak, then all the signs, all the bread, all the wisdom, whatever it is that people want, wouldn't make any difference. John 6:60-68 says, "Therefore many of his disciples, having heard, said, 'This word is hard. Who is able to hear it?' But Yeshua, knowing within himself that his disciples were grumbling about this, said to them, 'Does this make you stumble? What if you see the Son of Adam going up where he was before? It is the Spirit that gives life. The flesh does not profit at all. The words that I speak to you are spirit and are life. But there are some of you who do not believe.' For Yeshua knew from the beginning who they were who did not believe and who would deliver him up. And he said, 'Because of this I have said to you that no one is able to come to me unless it has been given to him by my Father.'" So Yeshua knew those who believed the message, those who were following after him because they'd seen him do miracles, do healings, do whatever signs and wonders. It says, "Because of this I have said to you, no one is able to come to me unless it has been given to him by my Father." Not that, again, he does it capriciously. He says, okay, you and you and you, I'm going to give to you to be able to understand the kingdom of heaven. It's those who are drawn by it. From then on, many of his disciples withdrew and were not walking with him anymore. Yeshua therefore said to the 12, "Do you also wish to go away?" Then Shimon Kepha answered him, "Master, to whom shall we go? You possess the words of everlasting life." They understood. Okay. The other disciples, the rest of the 120, they believed in him because they'd seen him doing all these amazing things. His true disciples were those who said to him, "This is difficult, but where else are we going to go?" Because they were drawn. They understood the word when they heard it, and they believed what was being said to them on a deep, fundamental level. The fact that Yeshua came doing all these signs confirmed what they believed. They weren't convinced by the signs, nor were they dissuaded from what they knew to be true. Very difficult to be dissuaded from something that you know to be true, unless you're deceived. To remember that sin is deceitful. Okay, so even if you know that the word of Elohim is true, sometimes sin can deceive you and lead you astray from it. But if you truly believe the word, then you can't depart from the word. You can't decide that actually doing something else would be better because you truly, fundamentally believe the word. Like these men say, "To whom shall we go? You have the words of everlasting life." John 11:37-42 says, "If I do not do the works of my Father, do not believe me. But if I do, though you do not believe me, believe the works that you know, and believe that the Father is in me and I in him." If you want proof, look to what I'm doing is that of the Father. Therefore they were seeking again to seize him, but he went forth out of their hand. And again, if you want proof of where someone is, look at what they do, not what they say with their mouth. And went once more to the other side of the Ardain, to the place where Yochanan was immersing at first, and there he stayed. And many came to him and said, "Yochanan indeed did no sign, yet all that Yochanan said about this man was true." And many believed in him there. John 5:24 tells us, Truly, truly, I say to you, he who hears my word and believes in him who sent me possesses everlasting life, and does not come into judgment, but has passed from death into life. So, this is the fundamental part of all of this, of any sign, of any prophet who comes speaking, whatever it might be. He who hears the word and believes in him who sent that person, he is the one who possesses everlasting life. Because they haven't believed in that person. They haven't believed in the signs, in the wisdom, in the food that they got, anything like that. They've believed in the word. And that means they've believed in the one whose word it is. John 9:13-16 says, they brought to the Pharisees one who was blind. Now it was a Sabbath when Yeshua made the clay and opened his eyes. Therefore the Pharisees also asked him again how he had received his sight. He said to them, he put clay on my eyes, and I washed, and I see. Therefore some of the Pharisees said, this man is not from Elohim, because he does not guard the Sabbath. Others said, how is a man who is a sinner able to do such miracles? And there was a division among them. And we find out other places in Scripture that indeed those who are of lawlessness can do signs and wonders. And we'll look at those things before we finish. The Pharisees had their religious idea about this. They said, this man's not from Elohim. He doesn't keep the Sabbath as we say to keep the Sabbath. As Paul says in Colossians 2, he says, let no man therefore judge you in how you keep the Sabbath, or in the keeping of Sabbaths and feasts, because they had their way that they thought it should be done, and they even judged Yeshua. But if what is in one's heart is not belief in the word, but it is wickedness, then if somebody who is from Elohim comes doing signs and wonders, the wickedness that is in their heart, the unbelief, will cause them to disregard signs that are good. Acts 6, 7-13 says, and the word of Elohim spread, and the number of the disciples increased greatly in Jerusalem, and a great many of the priests were obedient to the belief. And Stephanus, filled with belief and power, did great wonders and signs among the people. But some of the so-called congregation of the freedmen, Cyrenians, Alexandrians, and those from Cilicia and Asia, rose up disputing with Stephanus. So this is Stephen, who we see in Acts 7 get stoned. But they were unable to resist the wisdom and the spirit by which he spoke. They didn't believe it, but they were unable to resist it. Then they instigated men to say, we have heard him speak blasphemous words against Moshe and Elohim. And they stirred up the people and the elders and the scribes. So they came upon him, seized him, and brought him to the council. And they set up false witnesses who said, this man does not cease to speak blasphemous words against this set apart place and the Torah. Okay, so Stephen was a man who was from Elohim. He came doing great signs and wonders, but they disregarded them. Even though they couldn't resist the wisdom by which he spoke, they disregarded the signs. They didn't believe in the wisdom, certainly. In John 11, it says, and when he had said this, he cried with a loud voice, Eleazar, come out. This is Lazarus. And he who died came out bound with feet and hands with wrappings, and his face was wrapped with the cloth. Yeshua said to them, "Loosen him and let him go." Therefore many of the Jews who had come to Mary, and had seen what Yeshua did, believed in him. But some of them went away to the Pharisees and told them what Yeshua did. So the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered the council and said, "What shall we do, because this man does many signs?" They're not convinced by him. The reason is they don't believe the message. If we let him alone like this, they all shall believe him, and the Romans shall come and take away from us both our place and our nation. So they're just like the people in the Torah portion who believe that if they do what is right, that harm will come to them. And one of them, Caiaphas, being a high priest that year, said to them, "You know naught, neither do you consider that it is better for us that one man die for the people than the entire nation should perish?" Just like, I suppose, the people in the Torah portion would think. Better for us to not do what Moshe is said to do than for the entire nation to perish. John 7:24-36 says, "Therefore some of them from Jerusalem said, 'Is this not he whom they are seeking to kill? And see, he speaks boldly, and they say none at all to him. Could it be that the rulers truly know that this is truly the Messiah? And we know where this one is from. And when the Messiah comes, no one knows where he is from.'" Yeshua therefore cried out in the set-apart place, teaching and saying, "You both know me, and you know where I am from. And I have not come of myself, but he who sent me is true, whom you do not know. But I know him because I am from him, and he sent me." So they were seeking to seize him, but no one laid a hand on him, because his hour had not yet come. And many of the crowd believed in him and said, "When the Messiah comes, shall he do more signs than these, which this one did?" The Pharisees heard the crowd muttering these matters concerning him, and the Pharisees and the chief priests sent officers to seize him. Therefore Yeshua said to them, "Yet a little while I am with you, then I go to him who sent me. You shall seek me, and you shall not find me, for where I am, you are unable to come." The Jews therefore said to themselves, "Where is he about to go that we shall not find him? Is he about to go to the dispersion among the Greeks and to teach the Greeks? What is this word which he said? You shall seek me and not find me, and where I am you are unable to come." So here we see the Pharisees and the scribes and the rulers. It was discussed that they might know that he was the Messiah. If they knew that he was the Messiah and they did not believe in him, that's entirely possible according to what we've been looking at. That it doesn't matter whether you believe the sign or the wonder, or that they say, "Will the Messiah do more signs than these?" All of that is irrelevant, whichever side of the argument you fell on, that he's not the Messiah because he doesn't follow the traditions of the elders, or he is the Messiah because he does so many signs. All of that is irrelevant if they don't believe the simple truth that Yeshua speaks to them here in verse 29, I think. 28 and 29. Yeshua therefore cried out in the set-apart place, teaching and saying, "You both know me, and you know where I am from. I have not come of myself, but he who sent me is true, whom you do not know. But I know him because I am from him, and he sent me." So we see again, Yeshua just speaks here these very simple truths to them. He doesn't try to argue with them about any of their misconceptions about the scriptures or anything like that, because he knows it's irrelevant. Doesn't matter whether they believe him, because he has shown them great wisdom. If they don't believe the simple truth he just states to them, then it doesn't matter. Deuteronomy 13, 1-3 tells us something interesting about signs or wonders and about being led astray by them. It says, when there arises among you a prophet or a dreamer of dreams, and he shall give you a sign or wonder, and the sign or the wonder shall come true of which he has spoken to you, saying, let us go after other gods which you have not known, and serve them. Do not listen to the words of that prophet or that dreamer of dreams, for Yehovah your Elohim is trying you or testing you to know whether you love Yehovah your Elohim with all your heart and with all your soul. So, again, it's not about believing in the signs or the wonders. It's about the message which accompanies them. We're told if someone comes with a false message, doesn't matter if they do signs or wonders, Yehovah is testing your heart. He's seeing what it is in which you will believe. What's the message that they're coming with? If you believe their message because of signs and wonders, then you do not believe the truth. Matthew 24, verse 24 tells us, for false messiahs and false prophets shall arise, and they shall show great signs and wonders, so as to lead astray, if possible, even the chosen ones. So Yehovah will allow people to be deceived by signs. Why would he do such a thing? Well, we were told in Deuteronomy 13 that he's testing you to see whether you will follow him, whether you love him with all your heart and all your soul. Somebody comes speaking something that's not true, and you go after that, and you're captivated by that, and they do a sign or a wonder, and you think, yes, this is true. Then Yehovah has tested your heart. He knows where you're at. Whereas if someone comes speaking something false, even though they're doing great signs and wonders, then Yehovah sees where your heart is. In that, if you don't believe them, if you say, wow, they're doing great signs and wonders here, but what they're saying is against the word of Elohim, therefore I don't believe them, Yehovah tests your heart. In that, in Revelation 13, we see those who are false, or one who is false, who comes doing false signs and wonders. Verse 11 says, and I saw another beast coming out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and spoke like a dragon. So horns are kind of physical manifestations on the earth, rulers. 2 horns that were like a lamb, so that appeared good, but he speaks like a dragon. So we're warned of as such in Deuteronomy 13. And he exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence, and causes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he does great signs, so that he even makes fire come down from the heaven on the earth before men. And he leads astray those dwelling on the earth because of those signs, which he was given to do before the beast, saying to those dwelling on the earth to make an image to the beast, who was wounded by the sword, yet lived. So he comes and he's doing great signs and wonders, but he tells people to make an image to the beast, to worship that image, which is against the word of Yehovah to do such a thing. So he comes doing great signs and wonders, but he speaks what is false. So if such a person was to come to any one of us And they were to say, I want you to do this thing which is against the Torah. And then they were showing that they had great power. Then Yehovah would be testing our hearts in that. This is exactly the false prophet of Deuteronomy 13 that we're warned of. In fact, the beast, the second beast, is also referred to in Revelation as the false prophet, the one who leads people astray by the signs that he is given to do in the presence of the first beast. So if someone comes speaking words against the Most High, and they seem really impressive and they've got signs and wonders to do, then we are not to believe them. And this again reinforces the point that we've been looking at. It's the message which accompanies it, which is the important thing, not the accompanying signs and wonders. Revelation 19:19-20 says, "And I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to fight him who sat on the horse and his army. And the beast was seized, and with him the false prophet who worked signs in his presence, by which he led astray those who received the mark of the beast and those who worshipped his image." So this is what we've just read about in Revelation 13, that he would lead people astray to make an image to the beast, to worship the image of the beast, and ultimately to take the mark of the beast. People are interested in the mark of the beast. There's a teaching on the channel called The Mark of the Beast. 2 Thessalonians 2 says, "The coming of the lawless one is according to the working of Satan, with all power and signs and wonders of falsehood, and with all deceit of unrighteousness in those perishing, because they did not receive the love of the truth in order for them to be saved. For this reason, Elohim sends them a working of delusion for them to believe the falsehood, in order that all shall be judged who did not believe the truth, but have delighted in the unrighteousness." So we see there, it's not about signs and wonders, it's about the message. Which message did they believe? Did they believe the falsehood, or did they love the truth? Did they believe the truth? Someone will come doing signs and wonders and will lead people astray. It goes all the way back to Deuteronomy 13. So to get back to our Torah portion, and we'll finish with this verse. Yehovah said to Moshe, "How long shall I be scorned by these people? And how long shall I not be trusted by them with all the signs which I have done in their midst?" Doing signs in the midst of a people who do not believe is not going to work to convince them. That's what we see here. That's what we see all the way throughout Scripture. We'll come back in part 3. Okay, so in this part, I'm going to look at, for part of it at least, what is perhaps the other side of the coin when it comes to people believing in Yehovah because they see our actions. Verse 11 then said, Yehovah said to Moshe, "How long shall I be scorned by these people, and how long shall I not be trusted by them with all their signs which I have done in their midst?" And then he gives a proposal to Moshe to consider. He says, "I smite them with the pestilence and disinherit them, and make of you a nation greater and mightier than they." And Moshe said to Yehovah, "Then the Mitzrayim shall hear it, for by your power you brought these people up from their midst. And they shall say to the inhabitants of this city, they have heard that you, Yehovah, are in the midst of the people, that you, Yehovah, are seen eye to eye, and that your cloud stands above them, and you go before them in a column of cloud by day and in a column of fire by night. Now, if you shall kill all these people as one man, then the nations which have heard of your report shall speak, saying, because Yehovah was not able to bring this people to the land which he swore to give to them, therefore he killed them in the wilderness. So Moses' protestation against this is that the Gentiles, the nations surrounding, will say that Yehovah wasn't able to do what he said that he was going to do. And we see this kind of concern throughout Scripture about Yehovah's name being cherished, about it being kept, about it being guarded. We see in Deuteronomy 32:26-27, it says, I said I should blow them away, I should make the remembrance of them to cease from among men. If I did not fear the enemy's taunts, lest their adversaries misunderstand, lest they say, our hand is high, and Yehovah has not done all this. So Yehovah says, this is why I will not destroy them, lest the enemy misunderstand. And that's kind of what Moses is suggesting here would be the outcome. In Deuteronomy 9:23-29, it says, and when Yehovah sent you from Kadesh Barnea, saying, go up and possess the land which I have given you, then you rebelled against the mouth of Yehovah your Elohim, and you neither trusted him nor listened to his voice. You have been rebellious against Yehovah from the day that I knew you. So I fell down before Yehovah the 40 days and 40 nights, for I fell down before Yehovah, because Yehovah had said he would destroy you. And I prayed to Yehovah and said, O Master Yehovah, do not destroy your people and your inheritance, whom you have redeemed in your greatness, whom you have brought out of Mitzrayim with a strong hand. Remember your servants Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Do not look on the stubbornness of this people, or on their wrong, or on their sin. Lest the land from which you brought us should say, because Yehovah was not able to bring them to the land which he promised them, because he hated them, he has brought them out to kill them in the wilderness. And they are your people and your inheritance, whom you brought out by your great power and your outstretched arm. So this is, in fact, all about Yehovah's name before the nations. This retelling here in the book of Deuteronomy. This gives us some more information. Because he hated them, he's brought them out to kill them in the wilderness. This is all to do with this name. In Exodus 32:9-13 it says, and Yehovah said to Moshe, I have seen this people, and see it is a stiff-necked people. And now let me alone, that my wrath might burn against them, and I consume them, and I make of you a great nation. But Moshe pleaded with Yehovah's Elohim, and said, Yehovah, why does your wrath burn against your people, whom you have brought out of the land of Mitzrayim with great power and with a strong hand? Why should the Egyptians speak and say, for evil he brought them out to kill them in the mountains and to consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from the heat of your wrath and relent from this evil to your people. Remember Abraham, Yitzchak, and Israel, your servants, to whom you swore by yourself, and said to them, I increase your seed like the stars of the heavens, and all this land that I have spoken of I give to your seed, and they shall inherit it forever. So Moshe says to him, remember that you've sworn to do this. So you could phrase it as he reminds him of his name. That's the reason that Moshe opposes this idea. Now, Yehovah knew all along that he was not going to do that. He knows the end from the beginning. So, to me, when I read this, there must be something that it benefits Moshe in him saying, I'm going to do this, and Moshe thinking about it and saying, oh, wait there, what about this? What about that? It's for Moshe's benefit, as far as I can tell. Now, Ezekiel 36 tells us about what Moshe is talking about here. And essentially, you could encapsulate it in the phrase of profaning the name of Yehovah, teaching people false things about his name through your actions. Ezekiel 36:20-29 says, and when they came to the Gentiles, wherever they went, they profaned my set-apart name. For it was said of them, these are the people of Yehovah, and yet they have gone out of his land. But I had compassion on my set-apart name, which the house of Israel had profaned among the Gentiles wherever they had went. Therefore say to the house of Israel, thus said the Master Yehovah, I do not do this for your sake, O house of Israel, but for my set-apart name's sake, which you have profaned among the Gentiles wherever you went. And I shall set apart my great name, which has been profaned among the Gentiles, which you have profaned in their midst, and the Gentiles shall know that I am Yehovah, declares the Master Yehovah, when I am set apart in you before their eyes. And I shall take you from among the Gentiles, and I shall gather you out of all lands, and I shall bring you into your own land. And I shall sprinkle clean water on you, and you shall be clean. From all your filthiness and from all your idols I cleanse you. And I shall give you a new heart and put a new spirit within you. And I shall take the heart of stone out of your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. And put my spirit within you, and I shall cause you to walk in my laws and guard my justices, my mishpatim, and shall do them. And you shall dwell in the land that I gave to your fathers, and you shall be my people, and I shall be your Elohim. So Yehovah says that he does this all for the sake of his name. We can see the reason that he didn't utterly destroy Israel in the first place was because of his name. Then we see that when his people are scattered among the nations, they're profaning his name. So for the sake of his name, he cleanses them, and he causes them to follow his justices and his laws, his Torah, his Torah. So this is the flip side of the coin that I was talking about. If we go out and people see in us Yehovah, and they believe in Yehovah through the things that we do, the flip side is also true. If we go out and we behave incorrectly, then we cause his name, rather than to be glorified, we cause it to be profaned. This is the importance of carrying his name, and why we are not to carry his name in vain. And as we saw with the signs and the wonders, sometimes that's going to convince people. The things that you do, if they're signs and wonders, maybe people will see and they will be convinced of Yehovah. Maybe not. Maybe they don't believe the message and they're not convinced by it. But those people who are not convinced by it, don't believe the word, if they see something else from us, if they see rather us profaning his name, in my experience, people kind of gravitate towards that and are fascinated by that. And they, like the Greeks, seek for wisdom although wisdom without believing the word will not profit them. The Greeks seek for wisdom on the flip side as well. If you give them a reason to not believe in Yehovah, then they will not believe because of what you've given them. If you do something before them that causes them to say, who is this Elohim? This is a nonsense. You know, the name of Elohim has been profaned by many people who profess to be his people. So it's like they're not convinced by signs and wonders and wisdom or whatever because they don't believe the word. But because they don't believe the word, they are prone to believing the flip side of it. When you profane his name, or they find some kind of wisdom that they think denounces the idea of there being a God, they will love that and they'll gravitate towards that. Verse 17 of Numbers 14 says, and now I pray, let the power of Yehovah be great, as you have spoken, saying, Yehovah is patient and of great kindness, forgiving crookedness and transgression, but by no means leaving unpunished, visiting the crookedness of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generation. Please forgive the crookedness of this people, according to the greatness of your kindness, as you have forgiven this people from Mitzrayim, even until now. And as we looked at a couple of weeks ago, this is precisely what it is to call on the name of Yehovah. Here, it doesn't tell us that that's what he's doing, but that is, in fact, what he's doing. And Yehovah said, I shall forgive according to your word. But truly, as I live, and all the earth is filled with the esteem of Yehovah, for none of these men who have seen my esteem in the signs which I did in Egypt and in the wilderness, and have tried me now these 10 times, and have disobeyed my voice, shall see the land of which I swore to their fathers, nor any of those who scorn me see it. So he says, look, it's been 10 times now that they've tried me. That's it. They're not going to see the land anymore. Verse 24 says, but my servant Caleb, because he has a different spirit in him and has followed me completely, I shall bring into the land where he went, and his seed shall inherit it. So if we want to make it into the land, okay, we pass the tests when Yehovah gives them to us. We follow him wholly because he is not beholden to our caprices. He's not waiting on us to make a decision whether we are one of his chosen or not. We can act in a way that will mean that he will choose us, but we can't just flit about and think that Yehovah is beholden to our caprices when we decide to repent. He says, no, that's it. 10 times and no further. Verse 25 says, since the Amalekites and the Canaanites are dwelling in the valley, turn back tomorrow and set out into the wilderness by the way of the Sea of Reeds. And Yehovah spoke to Moshe and to Aharon, saying, how long shall this evil congregation have this grumbling against me? I have heard the grumblings which the children of Israel are grumbling against me. Say to them, as I live, declares Yehovah, as you have spoken in my hearing, so I do to you. Okay, and this puts me in mind of Galatians 6. Verses 7 and 8 say, be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. For he that soweth to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption, but he that soweth to the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap everlasting life. So if we ask, are these people sowing to the flesh or the spirit in saying, these people are bigger than us, they're going to kill us, why has Yehovah done this? Well, if they were sowing to the spirit, then that would be believing the spirit, believing the word. So what are they going to reap from sowing to the flesh? Going to see them reap corruption. They're all going to die in the wilderness. Verse 29 says, the carcasses of you who have grumbled against me are going to fall in this wilderness. All of you who were registered according to your entire number from 20 years old and above. This is how Yehovah instructed that they should be counted. So the idea of 20 years old and above, what relevance does that have? We read in Deuteronomy 2 verse 14, and the time we took to come from Kadesh Barnea until we passed over the Wadi Zered was 38 years, until all the generation of the men of battle was consumed from the midst of the camp. So this is certainly one thing. It's certainly true that they were the ones who would go out to the host or to the army. They were the men of battle. They were of battle age. So this is one element. In Isaiah 7:14 to 16 it says, therefore Yehovah himself gives you a sign. Look, a virgin conceives and gives birth to a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. He eats curds and honey when he knows to refuse evil and choose the good. For before the child knows to refuse evil and choose the good, the land that you dread is to be forsaken by both her kings. And this concept of there being a time before which a child knows to refuse evil and choose the good is something which is at play in this situation. In Deuteronomy 1:34 to 40 it says, and Yehovah heard the voice of your words and was wroth, and took an oath, saying, not one of these men of this evil generation shall see the good land of which I swore to give to your fathers, except Caleb son of Jephunneh, he shall see it, and to him and his children I give the land on which he walked, because he followed Yehovah completely. And Yehovah was enraged with me for your sakes, saying, you do not go in there either. And we can think of for your sakes as being, well, it was for your sake that he was angry with me. Maybe seeing him being angry with me would do you good. That's how it can read in English. The Septuagint translation gives us a little bit better understanding of what the Hebrew actually means. In the Septuagint, it says that he was wroth with me because of you. That's what for your sakes means. It's kind of a translation which is a bit misleading, but it basically means because of you. Yahushua the son of Nun, who stands before you, he shall go in there, strengthen him, for he shall cause Israel to inherit. And your little ones and your children who are for prey, who today have no knowledge of good and evil, they are going in there, and to them I give it, and they are to possess it. But you turn and take your journey into the wilderness by the way of the Sea of Reeds. So this retelling doesn't say those who are 20 years old and above will be the ones who will die. Rather, it says those who have no knowledge of good and evil, they're going to be the ones who go in. So we see that idea of before he knows to refuse the evil and choose the good. The idea that those who are under 20 did not have a knowledge of good and evil. Verse 30 says, none of you except Caleb, son of Jephunneh, and Yahushua, son of Nun, shall enter the land which I swore I would make you dwell in. But your little ones, whom you have said will become a prey, I shall bring in, and they shall know the land which you have rejected. Okay, we get the extra detail in Deuteronomy that they're the ones who have no knowledge of good and evil. Verse 32 says, but as for you, your carcasses are going to fall in this wilderness, and your sons shall be wanderers in the wilderness 40 years, and I shall bear your whorings until your carcasses are consumed in the wilderness. According to the number of days in which you spied out the land, 40 days, a day for a year, you are to bear your crookednesses 40 years, and you shall know my alienation. I am Yehovah, I've spoken, I shall do this to all this evil congregation who are meeting against me. In this wilderness they are consumed, and there they die. And the men whom Moshe sent to spy out the land, who returned and made all the congregation grumble against him by bringing an evil report of the land, even those men who brought the evil report about the land died by the plague before Yehovah. Of those men who went to spy out the land, only Yahushua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh, remained alive. And this puts me in mind of something that Yeshua said. He said, everyone therefore who shall confess me before men, him I shall also confess before my Father who is in heaven. But whoever shall deny me before men, him I shall also deny before my Father who is in heaven. So, Joshua and Caleb were the ones who went into the land, and they were the ones who confessed Yehovah before men. For us, when we're thinking about being resurrected and taken into the land, it will be those who confess Yeshua before men. And if we were to deny Yeshua before men, he would deny us before the Father. And we would not be those who go into the land, presumably. 1 Chronicles 28 8 to 9 says, and now before the eyes of all Israel, the assembly of Yehovah, and in the hearing of our Elohim, guard and seek all the commands of Yehovah your Elohim, so that you possess the good land, and leave it as an inheritance for your children after you forever. As for you, my son Shlomo, Solomon, know the Elohim of your father, and serve him with a perfect heart and with a pleasing life. For Yehovah searches all hearts and understands all the intent of the thoughts. If you do seek him, he is found by you, but if you forsake him, he rejects you forever, which is what we see here with Joshua and Caleb. Similarly, in 2 Chronicles 15, 1-2, it says, and the spirit of Elohim came upon Azayahu, son of Oved, and he went out to face Asa and said to him, hear me, Asa, and all Yehudah and Benjamin. Yehovah is with you while you are with him. And if you seek him, he is found by you. But if you forsake him, he forsakes you. This is what we see with the children of Israel here. They forsook Yehovah and he forsook them. And when Moshe spoke these words to the children of Israel, the people mourned greatly. And they rose up early in the morning and went up to the top of the mountain, saying, see, we have indeed sinned, but we shall go to the place which Yehovah had spoken of. And I experience this sometimes, speaking the word of Yehovah to people. People who are unprepared to meet the tests, those who, when their faith is tested, they choose their own comforts rather than the reproach of Messiah, so to speak. People kind of receive that, and they don't really accept it. If you say to them, listen, if you're going to fail the tests, you're not going to make it into the promised land. They don't receive that, and they kind of want to go about doing things their own way, which they've somehow convinced themselves is going to work out, even though the word says something different. But Moshe said, why do you now transgress the command of Yehovah, since it does not prosper? Do not go up, lest you be smitten by your enemies, for Yehovah is not in your midst. Because the Amalekites and the Canaanites are there before you. And you shall fall by the sword, because you have turned away from Yehovah. Yehovah is not with you. And it's the same thing, telling people, listen, if you forsake Yehovah, he'll forsake you. If you go out into battle against these enemies, then they will overcome you if you're not doing so according to the command of Yehovah. If you're transgressing the command of Yehovah, you will not prosper. But they presumed to go up to the mountaintop, neither the ark of the covenant of Yehovah nor Moshe left the camp. So the Amalekites and the Canaanites who dwelt in that mountain came down and smote them and beat them down even to Hormah. And Yehovah spoke to Moshe, saying, and this is the final part which is in this Torah portion, chapter 15. I'm not going to go all the way through chapter 15. If you understand the sacrifices that are asked for, then going through Numbers 15 is not strictly necessary. But one thing that I do want to explain to people, because people misconstrue what is written, and they think that all of the Torah is of this sort, is verse 2. It says, speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you have come into the land of your dwellings, which I am giving you. Okay, so when you see that statement written, it is something which is to be done when they come into the land. Sometimes people read this statement and they say all of the Torah is only to be done in the land, but that's not true, and I'll show you some examples. Leviticus 14:34-35 says, when you come into the land of Canaan, which I'm giving you as a possession, and I put a plague of leprosy, or Sara'at as it actually is, in a house in the land of your possession, then shall the one who owns the house come and inform the priest. So that's something that is to be done in the land. Leviticus 19:23 says, when you come into the land and have planted all kinds of trees for food, then you shall reckon their fruit as uncircumcised. For 3 years it is as uncircumcised to you, it is not eaten. And all of these commands are specific to the land itself, because the land is holy. The trees, therefore, that it bears are to be treated in a certain way. Now, when we grew fruit trees, we observed this command just in case. But this, when you come into the land, is something which is specific to the land, and you'll see through the other examples. Speak to the children of Israel, and you shall say to them, when you come into the land which I give you, and shall reap its harvest, then you shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest to the priest. Again, this is when you come into the land, you reap the land's harvest. You bring the sheaf of first fruits of your harvest to the priest. again, all of this is identified as being about the land. Leviticus 25 verse 2 says, "Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you come into the land which I give you, then the land shall observe a Sabbath to Yahovah." You can't keep that command out the land. You don't every 7 years keep a Sabbath to whatever land you're dwelling on in the land of the Gentiles. It says, the land shall observe a Sabbath. The land shall observe a Sabbath to Yahovah. Numbers 34, 2-3 says, "Command the children of Israel and say to them, when you come into the land of Canaan, this is the land which falls to you as an inheritance." When you come into the land, this is the land which falls to you as an inheritance. Again, this shows us it's when they come into the land, that command is concerned with that statement. The land of Canaan, to its boundaries. Then your southern border shall be from the wilderness of Sin, along the border of Edom, and your southern border shall be eastward from the end of the Salt Sea. You try and fulfill that out of the land, you're not going to be able to. Numbers 35, 10-11 says, "Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you pass over the Jordan into the land of Canaan," even more specific there, "then you shall choose cities to be cities of refuge for you, that the one who accidentally killed someone shall flee there." Again, this is all about the land being defiled, polluted by blood that is shed on the land, and only being atoned for by the blood of him who shed it. If it's an accidental killing, then the cities of refuge are where the killer can flee to from the revenger of blood. But again, this is specific, isn't it, to the land? And the Torah portion rounds out and says, "I am Yahovah your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your Elohim. I am Yahovah your Elohim." Shall we pray? Father, I thank you for your word, for this portion of your word that we've been able to study and learn about you from. Pray that you would prevent us from profaning your name in moments of weakness, like you prevented Avimelech from sinning against you with Abraham's wife. I pray, Father, that we would always glorify your name, that you would strengthen us by your Spirit, and that we would show who you are to people. I pray that you would lead us to people who will believe your word when we show them it through our actions and when we tell them of you and your great name. Thank you for watching over us and being with us, Father. Amen.